All right, so we are going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker here, which I am very excited for. I'm going to bring up Dr. Duren from PHN, and he has some very exciting news of a few changes that we're going to be making here going forward. So if everybody would please welcome Dr. Duren.
Test, test. The microphone works okay? Everybody here? Perfect. I was listening to Randy's introduction and trying to figure out when was the first time that I was actually involved with DAC, and it was way before 2010. I didn't even have gray hair, I remember. And Bob Clayton used to run around in an old Cadillac, and he paid me to come up and go to some farms with him. And Randy's right, he didn't know which end of the horse ate and anything like that. So that was my very first introduction to DAC. The other thing that was my first introduction is I got to hear Randy publicly speak for the first time. And you talk about a deer in headlights. I mean, he was just like, this is not what I do. And he's like, I think I'm going to have a heart attack. And I'm like, you're young. You're not going to have a heart attack. And he goes, I'm thinking I'm going to have a heart attack here. And he got through that. That was before you ever owned the company or anything. And we were at the basement of the fried chicken place. The hotel over there. Yeah, so that was an interesting thing as well. So I was thinking that PHN's responsibility or PHN's function when working with DAC, I think what we probably have done for Randy and RJ, Dr. Cubitt and myself, is we have probably single-handedly scared them more times than they want to be scared in changing products. And when Randy had us come in, one of the first things I did was change their number one product. I made a change to DAC oil, and he's like, you've lost your mind. That is the biggest product. And I go, yeah, but it could be better. We could do this and that. And he's like, you are messing with the biggest seller. And I said, yeah, it will be fine. This is what we need to do. And we made that change, and we've changed it again since. So even the big products, and Randy said this, that he thought that if we could improve these, okay, if we could make them better, then he was certainly all for it. So he echoed that, but I will tell you, over the years, we have absolutely scared him. So now, in giving my talk today, what they allowed me to do was to tell you about what I call assorted secrets of the universe. Things that go through my mind and Dr. Cubitt's mind as far as new products. How can we make things better? How can we introduce new things? So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is some new technology. And this is a product called GI Pro 3. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to what that is, how that functions, and how that's going to make your life better. Okay, this is something that we are really happy about and we've been working on for a very long time. Then after that, we're going to ask some questions, because I'm sure you're going to have some questions on maybe how it works, something that I didn't cover. Can it work for this? Can it work for that? I'll answer any questions you may have on that. Then once we get through that, then we're going to talk about the pasture lick. Okay, what am I going to do to that? Can I add something to the pasture lick that would make it better? We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to introduce some new products, something that you've never had in your line before, some products for deer. And we created a couple of those that we're pretty excited about as well. So that is my plan. And again, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to talk about the GI Pro 3 stuff. And then I'm going to stop after it and ask questions. So any questions you have on it, just wait till I'm done on the GI Pro 3. We'll ask those, and then we'll move on to the other topics. So how many of you have been to a DAC meeting of some sort? Okay. Most of those DAC meetings, whether they were done by Dr. Cubitt, whether they were done by myself or any of the DAC employees, what we do is we spend a tremendous amount of time on education of of the digestive system. You've seen this particular schematic diagram of the horse's digestive system probably in many, many different DAC presentations. And the reason we do that is we wanted to explain the digestive function, how a horse's digestive system works, because only when you know how that digestive system works that you can start to understand, how do I feed this horse? What are the proper things? What's important in the diet? What's less important in the diet? So we wanted to establish that baseline. And we have done this talk or put these schematics in hundreds and hundreds of talks that we've done. We've talked about the different regions of the digestive system. The first structure there is the stomach, a small, simple stomach designed for small, frequent meals. Okay? I didn't invent that horses are continuous eaters, that they prefer small, continuous meals rather than large single meals. That's all based on the anatomical design of the digestive system, that small stomach. So learning that, we can avoid a lot of digestive upset that occurs from feeding large meals to horses rather than letting them have feed throughout the day. We talked about the small intestine. That's the next structure that looks very much like a garden hose, if you will. That's where the grain portion of the diet is digested. So we want to make sure that our grains are processed, rolled, crimped, pelleted to enhance the surface area for those enzymes to digest that grain. So we talked about that. And then the last part of the digestive system, that big balloon-like area, that's the hindgut. That is full of microorganisms, if you will, that ferment or primarily ferment plant fiber. So that's the area of the digestive system where the hay is digested, the pasture is digested. So we talked about this because some of the health problems that we have with horses simply stem from we don't feed horses properly. So we spend a lot of time doing that. Then a lot of the DAC products that we have work in those specific areas and target specific things, so that's why we thought that was so very important. So we spent a great deal of time. It was necessary to learn how to feed horses properly. And I remember one of the first encounters that I ever had with Reuben Strock. We went to his farm. He was still shoeing horses at that time. And I was introduced as Dr. Duren, and here's this young guy, and he's like, holy heck, this guy doesn't know anything about horses. So the first test Reuben gave me, and he says, hey, hand me that horseshoe. I just saw him heat that horseshoe. I wasn't grabbing that horseshoe. I'm like, I'm not picking that up, that's hot. And he goes, test one, you passed. I think he wanted me to pick up a hot horseshoe. And I'm like, ugh. So we talked about a lot of the things that he did, and it really helped my relationship with Reuben that my dad had draft horses, and I could relate to that whole horseman background. I didn't come from a show horse. We came from using horse type people. And the other thing that he told me that was interesting is he said, in our community, you're going to find that all Amish utilize horses, but that doesn't make all Amish horsemen. And that was something it was revolutionary. He said, so you're going to have to educate them, educate us, just like anyone else, okay, on proper feeding horses. So we spent a lot of time, and again, it was very necessary to learn that so we knew how to feed the DAC products, what the DAC products would do, and what the DAC products wouldn't do. So in those talks, we spent a great deal of time talking about forage. That forage is the most important component of the diet. So that hay and pasture that those horses have access to, that's the critical aspect. The DAC products, boy, we'd like to think that they're the most important, but they're not. The fiber component of the diet is the most important. But what's really ironic about that, horses are fiber digesters, that hay and pasture is the most critical dietary component of the diet. Horses do not have the ability to digest hay. Horses do not have the ability to digest pasture. It's the microbes, the microbiome in that digestive system that allow horses to do that. They don't, themselves, mammalian species, do not have the ability to digest that fiber. So here I am telling everybody fiber, 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 and yet horses don't have the ability to do that. They're dependent on microbes to do that. So this hindgut of the horse, okay, this large balloon-like area, the largest single part of the digestive system, contains what we call a microbiome, okay? That's a fancy word to mean that it contains hundreds and hundreds of different species of bacteria, protozoa, fungi. Those ingredients or those microbes actually ferment fiber. They give the horse the ability to get nutrients out of fiber. So again, horses don't have the ability themselves. They depend on that microbiome. Well, then that microbiome will go ahead and ferment that fiber, will ferment that grass, will ferment that hay, and produce useful end products that the horse can then absorb and utilize. The biggest single one is energy, calories. And all of us who've ever fed a horse know that. Okay, if you turn a horse out to pasture or you're feeding good quality hay to a horse, he can get calories from that. He can gain weight from that. He can maintain weight from that. So those microbes, that microbiome allows him to accomplish that. The other thing that we figured out is that microbiome will actually provide other things. Those microbes will actually produce B vitamins that stimulate appetite, which are cofactors to so many different reactions within the body. So very useful, that microbiome, in maintaining the health and well-being of a horse. Now, early in our science of horses, we thought the microbiome had one single function, the one I just told you, to ferment plant fiber. And for many years, we were naive to think, okay, those bacteria are there. They're there for one purpose: digest hay, digest pasture. That's what they do. And we thought that that's the only thing that they did. And so there was very little research on what are the numbers of those different microbes? Which one's dominant? Which one's not as prevalent? We didn't know any of that. What we did instead is we spent a great deal of time working on other projects. Okay, myself, I did digestibility of fat for horses, oils. How much could they have? How digestible is that oil? Dr. Cubitt, in her research, did research on diet and how that influences reproduction. I did my PhD on diet and how that affects exercise performance. So we were on lots of other things, but studying the microbiome was not something that received much science at all. Okay, very little science, in fact. One function, okay? That microbe is there to digest fiber. We know everything we need, and so we were busy doing other things in the scientific realm. Now, what we found is when we start feeding performance horses, when we start feeding senior horses, what we found out is if we make a rapid dietary change, okay, the feed salesman was out and he convinced you to feed this grain rather than the one you were doing, and you rapidly switched the horse. Or you went from feeding dry hay to feeding pasture. The pasture was green enough. You turned the horses out. What we found is that if you disrupt that microbiome, you change the diet, you make very rapid changes, you could actually change what came out the other end. Okay, you could induce diarrhea. You could cause weight loss. Now this started us thinking, okay, maybe that microbiome is more sensitive than we thought it was. We thought, as long as you feed some fiber, it doesn't make any difference if it's green grass or dry hay or second cutting or first cutting or what it is, what alfalfa or grass, it didn't make any difference. Bacteria were happy. That's not correct. Okay, so it's only when we started pushing horses harder and pushing them into more performance roles that we began to see that, hey, this microbiome is really important and we've got to keep it healthy, because if you destroy the microbiome, If you disrupt the microbiome, you're through a whole series of digestive upset, colic, diarrhea, weight loss. Okay? Has any of that ever happened to any of you guys feeding horses? It absolutely has. Anybody ever hear of DDA? Okay, that was one of the very first products that we ever put together. We started saying, hey, this is important. We've got to do a better job with that microbiome. Now, since then, and you've heard Dr. Cubitt talk about this to some degree, but the amount of research that's been done on the microbiome in recent years, in the last 5 years, has absolutely exploded. Okay, we now are full into doing this. And the reason that we are is because we now have the technology with looking at DNA fragments to tell which bacteria are there and connecting some of the dots. Okay, so we're starting to find some of the bacterial differences, what types of bacteria they are, what types of things they normally ferment, what end products they normally produce. Now we found out that if you're fat or skinny, or your horse is fat or skinny, okay, it may be because of microbiome changes that are natural to that horse. That horse that is fat, he's efficient. He's got good microbiome. They're very diverse, and they can digest lots of things. That horse that you've been trying to put weight on for years may be a function that his microbiome is not correct. He doesn't have that diversity of microbiome. He can't digest all those fibers as efficiently. They're starting to connect the dots. Now they're connecting healthy with diseased animals. Those horses that have colitis, those horses that have insulin resistance, those horses that have other diseases. Dysbiosis. Okay, that's a fancy word to mean the microbiome is messed up. Can that occur? We know it can, and the number of papers that are happening on that is amazing. Laminitis. Okay? Laminitis is because we've messed up the microbiome. We've shifted the microbiome to be one that produces acid, one that destroys the integrity or the lining of the gut. Okay? Those acids will change the pH, destroy the gut, toxins absorbed, laminitis occurs. The microbiome is messed up. We didn't know any of this. Okay? This is all things that are starting to happen new. Now we've established a connection between the gut and the brain. Behavior may be affected by the microbiome. We've established the lung and the microbiome connection. So these little bugs that we gave no credence to at all, they may be driving the ship. Okay? So this was very enlightening. So where do I think this will go? Okay? I think in a lot of your lifetime, I think what you'll be able to do is take a sample of horse manure, a horse that maybe is an ADR horse. You know what an ADR is? Ain't doing right. Okay? So you'll have an ADR horse, and you'll be able to take a manure sample, and you'll be able to send that to a company that analyzes what bacteria are there. And they're like, oh, you don't have enough firmicutes. You need more firmicutes. And you will have a product that you can put into that horse that will correct that. Okay? I think that's going to happen. So I think where we are now, I think a lot is going to change, and it's going to be really, really cool that we're going to have products that actually cure disease. But I think it's going to go further than that. I think you're going to be able to take those samples from healthy horses and say, he's predisposed to this. I can fix this before it ever happens. Okay? That's where nutrition is going. So I get kind of excited about that, and I don't get nearly as excited as Tanya gets about it because she's younger than I am. So that's why we didn't let her talk about that, because she would have shown graphs, and she gets really animated, and so, yeah. So we won't do that to you today, but just know that this is where it's going to go. So What do we need to know about that microbiome? I told you that they are bacteria. So let's talk about the biotics, okay? Like the microbiome, let's talk about the biotics. Well, the first one that we probably are all familiar with are antibiotics, okay? And what are antibiotics? Okay, just as the name would say, anti means that they kill. These are things that kill specific types of bacteria. So that's the important. They don't kill all bacteria. Different antibiotics target certain bacteria. So we've used antibiotics for a long time. In fact, we overused antibiotics for a long time. And now we have bacteria that say, yeah, you're supposed to kill me with that, but I've got a super shield and no more. You can't kill me. Okay, we've developed resistance. Okay, so now to put antibiotics in feed, you have to have a prescription to do that. Okay, you can't just willy-nilly add antibiotics. These can be injectables, they can be oral. Again, I said a veterinary prescription. These are very important. They're very important to fight disease. Okay, here's the problem. You may have a disease that's caused by a gram-negative bacteria. The veterinarian may prescribe an oral antibiotic. You know, the ones you give like 12 pills twice a day type antibiotics. You've all been down that road. What those also do is they kill other gram-negative bacteria in the digestive system. So we've known that these oral antibiotics disrupt the microbiome. They cause a dysbiosis that can cause other things in the horse. Okay, so that's the first, if you will, of the biotics. Now we have another term that you've heard, probiotic. And probiotic, they're actually live microorganisms. They provide a health benefit. So basically what we're doing is we say, we know there's stuff that's alive back there. Can we feed some of that? Can we feed some of that live bacteria to these horses, and will that convey a health benefit for the horse? So we're just basically feeding other bacteria. So examples of this, lactobacillus, enterococcus, streptococcus, live yeast culture. Okay, things that are alive that we put into the horse's feed or the horse's supplement that get through the digestive system, get back to that big microbial population, that big microbiome, okay, and colonize, okay, live back there and help with the fermentation. So probiotics, we typically will utilize, this is why they didn't let me talk after lunch. Okay, so these probiotic use, we were using those for stress animals because we knew that stress could disrupt those bacteria in the hindgut. Okay, stress from a rapid diet change, stress from trailering, stress from training, racing, all those things that we normally do horses, we know that they can stress the microbiome. And by stressing it, they can kill those bacteria. If you kill the normal healthy bacteria in the digestive system, then that allows room for pathogens or bad bacteria to grow. So everything's got to be kept in a balance. So we'd use these for horses that were stressed, okay? And we'd often add them to a diet or a supplement to help minimize that, okay? How did we use them? Well, we let the horse get into full diarrhea and full sick before we used them. We didn't use any of these prophylactically or to help prevent. We were always just trying to patch up what was broken. So that was the first use of probiotics. Now we have something called prebiotics. Okay, so what are we in? We're in our third definition of biotics already. Okay, and a prebiotic is a non-digestible feed ingredient. So this isn't a live microorganism. Prebiotics are not alive. They're not putting a bug in the system, if you will. But what these things do is they stimulate growth or activity of certain gut microorganisms. So you're putting things in there specifically to help bacteria, to nurture, if you will. The other thing that these prebiotics do is some of them actually scavenge some of the harmful bacteria. Okay? Some of the harmful bacteria will glean to them, and then actually, because these ingredients aren't digestible, will actually go out of the digestive tract. So the common ones that we typically use in supplements, have you heard of MOS or FOS? Mannooligosaccharides, fructooligosaccharides. Okay? They're carbohydrates that aren't digestible that are put in there specifically to nurture these microorganisms or bind a pathogen. So how did we use these? The prebiotics, again, are often those non-digestible sugars, and they have a binding site on that sugar that is the same binding site that the pathogen binds the intestine. So what we do is pathogens aren't smart. They see the same binding site, they bind to this non-digestible sugar, and then they get harmlessly passed out of the digestive system. So thank goodness pathogens aren't smart. All we do is put in a similar binding site, something shiny. They like that, they go to it, get sucked up by it, and out they go. So prebiotics, we've used these. Again, these are some of the things like mannooligosaccharides, fructooligosaccharides, other things that can be used. Beet pulp is thought to be a probiotic. Okay, so we have other things. Beta-glucans are thought to be prebiotics. So other things can fit into that category as well. So they help minimize disease. So what did we do from a DAC standpoint? DAC, we went all in. We're like, these things are good, and we're gonna have a lot. Okay, so we started formulating the products to have these probiotics, to have these prebiotics. But how much do you need? Okay, if you're adding lactobacillus, if you're adding a probiotic, how much of it do you add? Okay, if you go to the scientific literature and say, okay, this should be the normal dose, we don't have that. How much streptococcus do you add? We don't have that. So what happened is we got in a tag race or a label race. Okay, they typically represent these as colony-forming units. That's an indication of how much bacteria is there. So do we put millions in or billions in? How much do we put in? Well, we knew they were pretty safe, so it was just, ours has got more than theirs. Ours is better. We did not have a clue, okay? We were just knew that they were safe, knew that they were beneficial, but literally did not know how much to put in. So it got into this massive tag race, and you've all looked at a bucket or you've all looked at a bag and you said, oh, this must be more because it's got more different types of bacteria and it's got more of them. Okay? That's how we started. Now here comes science. So a scientific paper published in the Journal of Equine Veterinary Science in 2021 actually looked at these different products, different supplement products. And what they wanted to look at is they wanted to look, are the bacteria, are the probiotics that they're putting in, are they viable? Are they there? Okay, so what they did is they collected a sample, and Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like 50 total supplements that they randomly selected initially. And then from that, they randomly selected 11 products to evaluate. And they were evaluating them by, could they find the bacteria that the label said were there, criteria 1, and could they find the numbers of bacteria that the label claimed? Okay, so what they were doing is they were just testing to see if what the manufacturer said was there was actually there. Now, these are supplements, none of the DAC supplements were included in this, but these were supplements that you all know, okay, that are the very most popular supplements out there. They evaluated them. Of those 11, none, 0 met label claim. Several of them had no trace of the bacteria that was supposed to even be in there. So that to me is liar, liar, pants on fire. Okay, so all these things that we were in this big tag race for were meaningless. Okay, manufacturers just simply weren't putting them in, or they weren't viable, they weren't living through the process. Remember, these things are live. So this kicked off a whole theme. Dr. Cubitt and I got together, and basically we just said, look, we got to do better. Okay, this is embarrassing to us as equine nutritionists, and we've got to figure out something that's better. So the first criteria that you need to remember is probiotics are alive. Okay, they're living, so they're sensitive. Okay, you can kill them, and then they don't have the same function. We also need to realize that the amount of a living microorganism that you put in a feed, okay, you can disrupt that. You can change that number, okay? Some of those numbers, those bacteria can die during manufacturing, pelleting, heating, doing stuff like that. Some of them can die during transport, okay? Loaded in Trapper's van and off it goes, okay? Or they can die when they're stored in your barn, okay? We need to do better. So how can we do better? So what we did is we have created a product that's a PHN, Performance Horse Nutrition product. It's called GI Pro 3. So what we did is we partnered with a company, Kemin, who does this for a living. Okay, this is what they do is solutions for livestock. What do we feed? How can we do this? One of the big areas that they work in is different probiotics. So what we developed is this GI Pro 3, and it's a probiotic. And here is a probiotic that functions as a proteobiotic. Okay, Tanya said I could only say that word one time. Proteobiotic, two. Okay, so what is that? That means that probiotic, the way it functions is it actually produces a protein. And that protein is what causes its biologic effect. So that confers its health benefit. Okay, so we charged out and we're going to produce or develop this product we call GI Pro 3. And so what this is, we worked with Kemin, and this GI Pro 3 is a proprietary. What does that mean? That means only PHN has it. Okay, we spent all the money in the research, we spent all the money in the development, we spent all the money in the time. It's ours. We are the only ones that have that. Because DAC is a PHN partner, DAC supplements are the only ones that have that. So proprietary. This is not going to your competitives. What it is, it's a proprietary blend of 3 species of Bacillus subtilis bacteria. And those are PBS6, FXA, and G3. So now you can tell how weird microbiologists are because that's how they name things. You know, they don't name it like Spot and Collie and Onyx or something like that, like you'd name a dog. They number things. But that's specifically what they are. Again, only the PHN clients have access to this. This is not going to be in other supplements and not going to be in other things that aren't associated with performance horse nutrition. So, testing. I am not going to put Performance Horse Nutrition's name on it if I don't know something about the quality of this product. Okay? So the first question that we wanted to ask is, will it survive manufacturing? Okay, well, what is manufacturing? One of the biggest stress in manufacturing is pelleting. Why is pelleting stressful? Because it's heat. You're putting a tremendous amount of heat to that to form the pellet. You get the grains or the ingredients hot with pressure and steam and heat. You push them through a die to make a pellet. Okay, so there's lots of heat. It's about, depending on the pelleting process, about 195 degrees Fahrenheit. We tested that product in pelleting. We'd add a certain amount, pellet, and then analyze the pellet to see if we could find the living proteobiotic. We can. It survives pelleting. Okay, check one, that's good. Second thing we wanted to find out, will it survive the acidity of the stomach? A lot of probiotics, when you put them into acid, they're not happy about that. The horse's stomach, as you know, has a low pH. It's very acidic. Horses do not have the ability to turn on and turn off that acid secretion. It's like a bad faucet. It's dripping acid all the time because horses are supposed to be fed all the time. Okay, so that's how they developed. So we wanted to find out, would it survive the acid conditions in the stomach? So normally the rate of passage is anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes, depending on the horse. We did this at a pH 3, very acidic conditions. It will survive. It arrives alive. Okay, so we've got it through the pellet, we're good. We've got it through the stomach, we're good. The next one is shelf life. Will it survive the ride in Trapper's van? Okay, Trapper was, as you would guess, the first rep that I worked with Dak. And I remember doing a talk with Trapper, and he said, well, maybe we'll get a snack before we do the talk. I said, all right. So I had to give this talk, so I didn't want to eat anything too heavy. And he says, oh, yeah, you don't want to eat anything too heavy before you have to speak. So we whipped into a Dairy Queen, and I ate the biggest blizzard I've ever eaten in my life. Came with an insulin pen. That's how big it was. Man, I didn't think I was ever going to get through that talking because, man, you got to toughen up if you're going to do this. So anyway, that's my Trapper story. So shelf life, will it survive? Okay, the GI Pro 3, those 3 species of the Bacillus subtilis bacteria are actually activated by pH, by acid. So do you know how a pine cone works or an acorn works? It won't grow into a tree until you break that outer husk. So with pine cones, for instance, it's the forest fires that heat that pine cone that make it expand, and then the seeds pop out. With the GI Pro 3, it's actually the acid that helps break that open so it can have that proteobiotic effect. Okay, so that's very important. So it is not active when it's just sitting around in a supplement. It's not active when it's sitting around in a feed. It only gets activated when it absorbs or gets into the acid situation. So what's the shelf life? Years of shelf life. So it can be in paste, it can be in powders, it can be in feeds, pellets, textured. It will survive. So it gets through pelleting, it gets through acid, and it gets through shelf life. Okay, so we're very happy. It ticks the boxes. But that means nothing if we don't know what does it do. Okay, so we know that it will arrive alive to the hindgut, but what does it do? Okay, now here comes all the science. What do these 3 species of Bacillus subtilis, okay, and there's lots more species, we selected these 3 on purpose. What do they do that can affect disease? So these studies were done in vitro. And in vitro means basically in a test tube, if you will. So they would grow these different harmful bacteria on what they call agar plates. And then they would put these probiotic, this GI Pro 3, on that plate and see what happened to those pathogenic bacteria. Would it kill those bacteria? That's the way an in vitro study actually works. And they found that in vitro, okay, in controlled conditions, that it will kill certain bacteria. Clostridium. If you guys look at any of your vaccines, your 8 ways, those sorts of things for horses, they always contain Clostridia vaccine. Always. This Clostridium difficile, Clostridial perfringens is one of the things that's most likely to kill an animal. What about rhodococcus? What is rhodococcus? Anybody know what that disease is? That's a disease that causes big diarrhea in foals, ends up in a liver and lung abscesses in foals. What about strep equi? Anybody know what that causes? Strangles. Okay? So you put the strangles bacteria that causes strangles, you put this GI Pro 3, kills it. That's a big deal. Okay, salmonella. Salmonella, if you have a horse that goes into a hospital, if you have a horse that goes through a cell barn, okay, one of the things they'll often get is diarrhea associated with salmonella. Okay, these are the ones that we actually tested. So those bacteria that I just listed there are responsible for strangles disease, loose manure, many different cases of diarrhea, lung abscesses, and general dysbiosis or non-functioning of the hindgut. So what that makes is that makes GI Pro 3 a true probiotic. Okay? It gets through the pelleting, it gets through the pH, it can be put in a paste, a supplement, can live on a shelf, can be fed to your horse, and it will arrive alive to the hindgut. Once it arrives, we know that it has effect on these different disease processes. It will actually kill those bacteria. Now, does that mean that that can be used as a disease treatment? No. Disease prevention. Those bacteria are in the digestive system. That is the largest immune organ in the body. So how does a horse get strangles? It's because that digestive system is broke down and those pathogens have been absorbed that cause that disease. If you can kill some of those pathogens while they're in the gut, that could be big. Okay, we're excited about this. Again, I think this is one more step in the maturation or our learning curve, if you will, about the different probiotics, but we are really, really excited. So, where are we going to put this? Okay, all right, now we scare RJ and Randy again, okay? And what I'm wanting to do is to say, well, why don't we pull out some of these other things that I don't know if I got the right numbers in and stuff like that, okay? Well, then now we're scary. Now we're starting to change things. Do we want to change? Well, two of the places that we're going to put them in very aggressively at the full therapeutic dose are the product Rescue Aid and DDA. Those are two places that those products are used specifically for those sick horses, and we're going to put those in those as well. Okay, what did we do with the other stuff? Well, the other stuff we've left in there, okay? We didn't take that out. I would envision that we will start to pick and choose what we don't have good data on and start to reduce that amount, start to pull that out, and start to get even more aggressive with this. What are we going to do with some of the other DAC products? Okay, we're going to put that in a non-therapeutic way. We're going to start to introduce those into the normal things that you have bacteria in the DAC products. So we're going to start to put that in. Remember, this is something that only DAC has access to. These aren't things that you're going to see. These aren't things that your competitors are going to see. If you look at the new catalog for DAC, I believe there's a GI Pro 3 ad in there. Very first GI Pro 3 ad ever. DAC is the very first PHN company that's going to put that in. So we are really, really excited about this. We think we're finally making or taking a step forward, and so we think this is going to be good. So what I'll do is I'm going to stop there for a second, and I'm going to answer, if I can, questions that you might have on GI Pro 3. So myself and Dr. Cubitt will try to field those questions. Let me get down off of here so I can hear the question. Yes?
Is that going to be in the Rescue Aid paste or the powder?
Okay, the question was, is it going to be in the Rescue Aid paste or just the Rescue Aid powder? Both. It will be in both.
But it's not in there as of yet.
Okay, the next question, it's not in there as of yet. It will be, will it be on these orders? Okay, so what we had is we have to work through inventory of other probiotic and prebiotics, but we will make a big splash when it's there, but it's going to happen very rapidly. Yes?
So you said that you're going to put full dose
You said you were going to put a full dose of it in the DDA, and that's something that a lot of people feed regularly. Is it just for horses who are having difficulties with digestion, or can you still feed all your horses DDA?
Okay, so everyone heard that question about DDA. We put it in at a full dose. Is that something that you can feed on a daily basis? Absolutely. It's a probiotic. So feeding it on a daily basis is not going to be an issue. And that's why we didn't just put it in Rescue Aid, you know, our panic button product. We wanted to get it in there because we think we can help eliminate the panic if we have it in there on a constant basis. So will not hurt anything. You will not develop resistance from it, anything like that. So it's in there.
Help me, but let's just clear up the air a little bit. And we heard you say this is not a fix once they're in deep. This is prevention. So we have people that use the rescue aid when they're halfway in deep and try to get their immune system jacked up and walk through it right now. So it's not necessarily a lost cause. And we have people that use the rescue aid for prevention too.
Yeah, so
elaborate on that.
yeah, so what typically happens is lots of people will feed the DDA kind of on a maintenance deal, and then when they do all the things that we tell them not to do, and they end up doing it, and then the horse ends up sick, and then they want to try a product that fixes that. Yeah, it's in there at full strength and can do that. It's not a lost cause because those diseases hang on and continue to produce those harmful pathogens for a long time. So getting those cleaned up is certainly not a lost cause. We want to do that. The other thing that we do is, remember, horses will pass some of these diseases to each other. Okay, they'll eat manure from other horses and just the nasty things that horses normally do. So having the rest of the group on the DDA is not a bad, and that's why we put it in there. And so anytime we monkey with oil or DDA or some of those big selling products, like to do this one, I had to take RJ on a rafting trip to think that he was actually going to drown, and before he agreed to it. So kind of the Steve Duren waterboarding effect. Okay, but it is important, and that's why we not only put it in the rescue product, but we put it in the other one as well. Over there, Everett. The guy with the beard.
What about the people that use it in the goat dairies?
Yeah, so the next question is, will this be safe for other animals with microbial populations or microbiomes? Yes, it will be safe for those. So that won't affect it. It has the same testing, was in vitro, so we know we can kill those bacteria. Do those other animals have those bacteria? We know they do as well. Lambs, for instance, goats, for instance, the Clostridia is a big deal for them. Okay, so yes, it can be fed to those other animals as well. Everybody hear that? What about chickens? What about chickens, Tanya? Tanya's a chicken raiser from long ago.
The only reason I say that.
Chicken and chicken, sure. I don't think it'd do anything wrong. Clostridia is a problem in chickens, right?
Yep, I know that is, yeah. So, no, it won't hurt them. Okay. So, let her rip. Over there, Everett. It will be in the smaller level. It won't be at the full 4 gram, the full high dose, but it will be in that. So you're going to start to see it in a lot of different products. Right now, you've written it as just Bacillus subtilis. I would think in the future, we'll put in parentheses GI Pro 3. We'll start to do that. Companies hate when we do that, but I think we're going to try to brand it like that.
Catalog, each product that it will go in, even at a supported rate, it's in there now. The little logo is there.
With adding the additional ingredient, will the serving sizes change?
No. The question was, will it change the serving size? No. Again, this is another thing that freaks RJ and Randy out. So I've only got so much space. So I got to start pulling something out to put that in. Now, some of these, we got a little bit of carrier space, with the distillers or something like that, so minor differences. Other things we had to modify and do that, but the serving sizes will not change. Okay, so the question is, will it be transferable? Can I feed it to a mare and get an immune response in the foal? No, you can't. But if the mare's clean, what's the first thing a foal does when he's born? Right before he gives you that little snuggle that you're so excited about, he just ate his mare's manure. Okay, so if it's clean and you've cleaned up some of those pathogens and don't have as much disease, that would be where you got your benefit, but not through a placental transfer. Yeah, so the question was giving it to a big broodmare band, will that help in cleaning up the general environment? Absolutely. The other thing is this can go into young horses. Okay, so those foals, when they're a week old, before they went through that foal diarrhea from the foal heat, but they haven't got the rotococcus, this is something that can be given to foals, okay, to help clean up that digestive system of their own. So that's where the potential benefit. But it can't be, and it's not labeled for, I have a rotococcus outbreak, I'm going to give this and cure that. Okay, it won't do that. We got to prevent it. It won't cure. He's right behind you with the microphone.
Yes, on sheep, will too much copper be in the DDA for sheep? Or
What is I got to look and see what the copper is. But I mean, I would start by feeding it to sheep you don't like. But let me look at what the copper level is real quick here.
We got your back, honey.
No, it won't hurt sheep. This minute back here first.
I was just wondering, have you done any testing as far as parasitic, maybe improvements in using these products? I had a horse several years ago that got EPM, and I've always wondered if there was a little bit of a breakdown in the gut possibly. I mean, these horses are exposed to this stuff, I think, on a daily basis, but at what point and why would that become an issue? And is this something that maybe provides an optimal gut environment and also eliminating some toxins that may help?
Yeah, so what we've done and what Performance Horse Nutrition has done and what we've tried to build through DAC is a lot of those supplements are designed specifically for that, to correct that dysbiosis. But the other thing is to correct the holes, what they call leaky gut, which will allow those pathogens direct access into the blood. We've tried to repair that. So a lot of the supplements that you see are designed specifically not only to, again, correct those imbalances, but stop that leak, and that's where the pathogens are coming. So yeah, we're very aware of that. Many of you know the first product that we had that will help with that is a product called Butyl Z EQ. Okay, you know that one because butyric acid, that is the substance that makes horse manure smell like horse manure. Okay, so Randy didn't think, first of all, I could get horses to eat rocks. I did, orange. Okay, secondly, can we get them to eat their own manure, something that smells that bad? And we've got how many supplements now with butyric acid? 2. So it's, and Furman, I mean, hated that because he could tell when it came in the warehouse because.
I agree, but y'all gave me death threats, so.
Yeah, so, yes.
How well did DDA perform on that
Yes, so DDA wasn't even in the 50, so we didn't get baptized by fire, so we have no idea. Now, that's an interesting question because Tanya and I went through the math, and we said, okay, if we're adding this much of this particular bacteria product from this company, we're adding it to the supplement, we should have about this many colony-forming units. So what we did is we started sending them to the lab and having them count. So we were doing this on our own products, okay? And then we went back to the company that sold us the probiotics and said, we added this as you intended it, we didn't get that number of colony-forming units. So that was one of those come to Jesus meetings, and they're like, oh, we mislabeled that batch and stuff like that. So it made us really think about where we're buying those and doing some checks on the front to make sure we're correct. So again, it was all kind of a maturation process with Dr. Cubitt and myself of seeing so many things that we thought were correct and we trusted people to do that just weren't having the effect or weren't being added properly, that kind of stimulated, we got to do something better. And again, I think it's only the first step. I think there's going to be a lot of technology change, and we're going to get better at this. But we've got to get better because we, as other companies, really had done poorly. Right behind you. Yes? CMZ paste, will it be in that one, Tanya?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So again, starting to put it in. The CMZ paste is for that foal that's kind of a train wreck anyway. So it will be in there. But if that foal, or you've got other foals that develop rhodococcus diarrhea, I would go with the rescue aid and go a little more aggressive. Yes, sir. Yeah, so a horse that goes through the sale barn that gets strep equi or strangles, the question was, does that affect the pH of the stomach? Will that have any effect on that? No, that won't have any effect on that. Only to the effect that strangles doesn't affect appetite. If he gets to the point where he's not wanting to eat or eat the normal volumes of feed, then his stomach will become more acidic. So that will happen. Will the GI Pro 3 have any effect on pH? No, it won't. It works in the hindgut. Way over here. Just a second, Everett will get you the microphone. He's right behind you.
Can it be used on feeder calves?
Yes, it can be used on calves. Again, they have a microbiome. Theirs is in the front part of the digestive system, so that's not a problem at all. Yes?
If eating cool gut with DDA, does the cool gut neutralize the stomach acid to a point where this won't activate?
Okay, that's a good question. The question was on feeding Cool Gut, a product that's designed to buffer stomach pH. Will that knock the pH down too low that you won't get activation? No. Okay, it just dampens the pH, but you'll still have plenty to get it going. Yes?
Penicillin gone off the market, would this be an alternative to treat sick horses?
Okay, the question was, with penicillin gone off the market, will this be an option to treat sick horses? Again, not treatment. Got to get ahead of it. Prevention. So it's not going to be one of those, I can give this is just like an antibiotic that's killing these things. Doesn't work that way. Okay, it's got to get on the front end of that and prevent a disease rather than treat a disease. The question was, will you see this in competitors' products? Is there any other company that's working on this, or similar to it? We got a massive head start because what we did is we went to Chemin, and because of the other products that we buy from Chemin, the chromium, the butyl Z, those sorts of things, they were very willing to give us a head start. Then we got involved in the science part of it. And that gave us a head start as well. So no, you're not going to see, we got a head start, but again, that's why we pushed Randy and RJ so hard that we need to do this and we need to get after this, because this is all published research. Okay, people are going to see this and say, hey, that worked. We need to put that in. And so we're ahead of that because we did the science.
Let's gear it up.
Yep. What's that? Ready? Okay. Okay. Now, you didn't think that that was the only secret of the universe that I had. Okay, so the next thing is the pasture lick. You can just sit them there. The next thing was the pasture lick. Can we do anything to improve that? So I have horses, okay, and I watch horses eat all the time. I write them off my taxes because I claim I'm a nutritionist, so that's how I get around it. But anyway, I watch horses, and I watch horses in the summer months, and the single thing that irritates me and irritates my horses, what would you think that is? Flies. That pesky fly. So how can we disrupt that cycle? Okay, so that fly is landing on the horse, is biting that horse. Can we somehow break that life cycle? Okay. Can we reduce the flies without insecticides? When we start thinking about insecticides and we have children around and you're applying those yourself and you're supposed to wear a glove and you never do, and then you wipe your mouth and ooh, that kind of tasted bad. And is that good for you? Well, we think that can kind of be a problem. So is there a way that we can use those things that will disrupt the fly cycle? Can we do it safely? Then the next question is, can we feed something that will help break that cycle? Or is this constantly going to be something that we actually have to spray on or wipe on the animal? What can we do, or can we do something that we can help break that cycle by feeding it? So Randy mentioned one of the partners that DAC and certainly PHN has used for a long time is the Alltech company. We've used a number of their products, their trace minerals. We've used those for years. We've used yucca has been sourced from them. The yeast sac has been sourced for them. So lots of things. Well, they just got approved a product called Naturefly X. Okay? And this is a natural product that can disrupt that fly cycle. So what is it? Okay, well, it's diatomaceous earth, it's yucca, and it's molasses and flavor. That's what that Naturefly X is. Okay, it also has some bacteria in it, but Alltech makes bacteria stuff, so they put bacteria in everything to help get rid of it. So, but those are the things that it actually contains. So how would they work? The diatomaceous earths, that's fossilized algae dust. Okay, can you feed it? Yep, safe to feed. Well, if you actually look at that, okay, you look at its structure, and you look at its structure under a magnifying glass when you can see it, okay, it's got a very abrasive coating to it. Okay, so it's abrasive. Okay, and what that is that's abrasive not to the horse's digestive system, but it's abrasive because it's dirt. It's not going to be digested. It comes out. In the manure, it's abrasive to the fly larva. So a fly larva that's there actually won't survive because it's been damaged. The outside layer of that larva has actually been damaged. So the way diatomaceous earth actually works is it coats that manure, that abrasive nature destroys that larva and stops that fly cycle. Okay, so that's a potential valuable ingredient for that. What would yucca have to do with flies? Okay, the reason that we add yucca to a lot of products is first for the anti-inflammatory effect. I think this is one of Trapper's favorite products is yucca for the anti-inflammatory effect. We know that it has that effect. What else does it do? Yucca is known to scavenge ammonia, absorb ammonia. Okay, so it makes the manure so it doesn't smell. Okay, what attracts a fly to manure? The smell of it. Okay, so we're deodorizing. In fact, that's the trade name of yucca is deodorase. So we're helping to reduce that ammonia smell. Okay, so there's less fly attractant to your particular stable. Okay, the other ingredients, the molasses, the flavor, the bacteria fermentation. Why would you add that to a product? Remember, anything that I design, anything that I add in a product, if I can't get the animal to eat it, it won't work. Okay, so these are all based to gear or to fuel palatability so that the animal will actually eat it and it can be utilized. Okay, so what we decided to do is we decided to add a therapeutic dose of this Natrefly X to the pasture licks. Okay, so that you can put that in, and that those horses that are out there grazing that are associated with flies all the time can have that as a natural method of fly protection. Now, the question that we haven't asked yet or answered yet is, what about pulling it out and putting it in? Or do we just leave it in? So we're still struggling with that because we get an inventory of tubs. So the tubs that are going out now, you certainly want it in, but do you want it in January? Or do we just leave it in all the time and be done with it? So your feedback on that to both RJ and Randy and certainly to us will help us decide that. I'm kind of all in. Just leave it there, because if we leave it there, then we don't forget or we don't get caught that we've already started the fly cycle and we still have licks that don't have it. So 3 very simple ingredients: the diatomaceous earth that will rub those fly larvae wrong or destroy them, if you will. The yucca to absorb ammonia, make the manure so it doesn't smell as much, and then the other ingredients to get them to eat it. So we are going to add this immediately to the pasture licks as a means of natural fly control. So, questions on that?
Will it be in the pasture licks that we would order today, or is that in future?
They are, I'll let you know, I just talked to Furman. You will see that, not the ones that we have in stock right now, but within the next week or two, we have another semi-load of lick dubs coming. So as you guys start getting your next pallets of lick dubs, you will see the transition by the end of the month with having the flyer repellent in there.
Can we get the pricing if we wanted to wait to get that?
It is the same pricing, we are not changing the pricing.
Okay.
Yes. Question was, can it be put into the DDA? I don't think so. I don't think I've got enough room to put as much dirt in it as I need, and diatomaceous earth, not dirt, that I can actually get that in that product. So I just don't have enough room to put it in that particular product yet. Yes.
Are you going to include this in some sort of supplement also for horses that are stable?
Okay, the question was, are we going to put this in a supplement, something that would be fed to a horse that's normally in a stable, so the orange or something? Actually, I'd never thought of that until you just started asking that question. I haven't even thought about it, so kudos to her. So that's something that we'll consider. We'll have to look and see which would be the most logical product that we could potentially do that with. Yeah. So. Yeah, so the comment where, there's certain horses that don't have the pasture lick because either they're not in that type of situation or because of the carriers in it or whatever, that's not a normal thing that they eat. So I hadn't thought about putting it in another thing, but I think you can probably get some of the Amish guys to make you like a leather fly swatter. So you wouldn't worry. exactly, so you wouldn't wear it out. You guys make those, right? You guys should. All right. That's my freebie for the day. Yes? Will diatomaceous earth kill parasites? There is some research on that, some natural wormers where people will actually use diatomaceous earth. What we did with anthelmintics, what we did with wormers, is we decided, okay, we need to kill parasites, internal parasites in horses. So we started worming horses. But instead of worming them when they needed to be wormed, we got worming horses on a cycle. Okay, I'm going to worm my horses once a year, or twice a year, or 4 times a year. Okay, we started not looking at the parasite load that they had, but just started randomly worming horses because it was our cycle. What we've done is we've developed resistance to parasites and our ability to kill those particular internal parasites. So many of the modern anthelmintics don't kill parasites anymore. Bad news, we're not developing anymore. There's no science going on right now to develop new classes of anthelmintic. Okay, so we need to be careful in worming horses. Do a fecal, okay? Worm the horses that need to be wormed. But there are some horses that will have some natural immunity, will not have parasite loads. And so rather than continue this resistance cycle, we need to be more careful. Answer your question, yeah, diatomaceous earth will, they think, be part of that. Have you read any science on that much, Tanya, on how much? I think it would take a lot, and that's not something.
It doesn't work, because it just takes too much.
Yeah, see,
Worm burden being a high worm burden.
yeah, see, so I agree. I think what you do is if you had to feed enough diatomaceous earth to kill internal parasites in a really wormy horse, you would put so much iron and other things that you didn't intend to put in that horse that, yeah, that it'd be a problem, so.
With the fly control, I mean, if you, in the middle of summer, say, I've got a lot of flies, I'm gonna buy some lick tubs and it's gonna cure my problem, it's not. You've gotta start feeding the fly control before you start, not allow them to get a foothold.
Yes.
In the past, we said pasture licks weren't for horses that were fed fortified grains in the barn. Obviously, with this product coming out, customers are gonna wanna feed this as well. What's the hazards to that?
Okay, so the question was, the pasture lick is designed for horses that aren't eating fortified grains or other supplements. It's for the horses that are outside that may not be caught every day and not be routinely fed. And that's how we developed that particular product. His question or comment was, now what are we gonna do with all the customers because we have fly control in there, wanna feed that? So that's why her question was so good, can we put it in another product? And I hadn't even thought of that. So that may be something potentially. That's something that they have on stock, something that can be changed rapidly. So that may be something we have to fix.
Is there a risk of doing both?
Okay, oh yeah, I forgot to actually answer the question. So the question of the pasture lick contains vitamins and minerals. The fortification contains vitamins and minerals. So can you get too much? Well, there are certain nutrients you can, selenium, iodine, those sorts of things. It would depend on what other supplements they're feeding and how much. So rather than you have to dissect this, they don't go together very well. So Dr. Cubitt and myself and RJ and Randy need to sit down and think about where else we could potentially put this. I did not think about that.
So the answer is it could be dangerous depending upon the supplements.
Yes.
We do the pasture lick and what we're feeding the horses. That are
Yeah, those aren't to go together right now. Everett, what are you doing?
What's the sugar content in the molasses? And is it safe to free choice to insulin resistant or metabolic horses?
Okay, the question was on feeding molasses or molassified feed or the lick tub. Is that safe to feed to horses that are insulin resistant or have some of the sugar related diseases? The pasture lick is designed to be fed outside on pasture. So if you're insulin-resistant horses outside on pasture, I'm not worried about my pasture lick. You're going to kill it with your pasture before you blame me, okay? But yes, molasses is a sugar product. It's a byproduct of the sugar industry after they've removed some of the sugar, but it's actually sold on sugar content. Okay, so no, it's not something you want to feed to an insulin-resistant horse.
How about a product just for flies, like just a fly resistant, something that you would start feeding like in the spring and then?
Yeah, so the question again goes to another product that you could hand feed and know that you're feeding that. And obviously that's something that I neglected to even think about, so that's something I need to think about. So we'll keep you posted on that. Okay, we've done enough pasture lick stuff. Everybody good on that? Okay. Okay, here is something that is brand new. DAC has now launched themselves in the deer product range or having a range of products for deer. This has been a priority project for me for years. I've always been interested in doing something like this, and it never really fit kind of into the DAC model. Never the right opportunity or the right time for that opportunity until now. So what we've done is RJ turned me loose and let me create some deer products for you. Now, many of you who don't know me, I have been attacked by lots of wild animals, and because of that, I've become sensitive to it. These were all things that tried to get into my office at one time, and I had to harvest these animals because of just my safety, children's safety. So on your right, as you look at it, that's an elk that I shot. I shot that with a bow and arrow, trying to give it every opportunity to run off. It refused. Above that, that's a mountain lion. Again, trying to eat my children and my livestock, so I had no opportunity but to do that. So that's one of the couple mountain lions that I've got. In the center, that's a moose. People heard about my prowess for protecting individuals, so they offered me an opportunity to come to Canada to help them. I didn't want to go, but I did. I went and helped out. And if any of you have ever shot a moose, this is just like shooting a buggy horse down in the brush. Okay, this, after the fact that this happened, this I started to think was not a good idea. Okay, but again, it was a dangerous animal, had to be done. The bison, okay, we all know the damage bison can do. Any of you have seen those videos of those people trying to pet bison? Those are dangerous animals. They shouldn't be around. So again, this wasn't Yellowstone Park. Don't take a gun into Yellowstone Park. That's not a good idea. Okay, so I did that. And then the final one is a mule deer buck. You know, mule deer bucks, when they get in the rut, can destroy trees and all sorts of things. So those who have known me, I have a tendency to drift towards elimination of animals that are potentially dangerous. So what RJ allowed me to do on this was the first product to do is create a block that is a mineral block for deer. And this product is called Big Buck. It's a mineral block. It's this one. So these are actually ready right now. So this is what this looks like. So this is just a salt and trace mineral. It's got some vitamins in it as well. The 3 vitamins that are most often deficient in a deer's diet, vitamins A, D, and E. Okay, is it flavored? Of course it's flavored. You got to flavor it. So it's an apple flavor. 2 things I did with this product that are unique. The first thing that I did is I used the marine-derived calcium. Now, we use that in lots of DAC products, but why do we use it in all those other DAC products? Remember, that's the calcium that absorbs all the stomach acid. Okay, what else does it do? It's highly bioavailable, okay, so it increases bone density. Would that be important for antler growth? I don't think so. Probably not. Probably won't work. Nah. Okay, so I put that product in it, and the other thing that I did is for an antler or a tissue to grow, okay, they've got to have nutrient, okay, they've got to have energy. So what I put in there as well is organic chromium. Organic chromium potentiates or helps the action of insulin. It helps insulin drive sugar into that cell. We know that chromium drives sugar into the mammary gland, increased milk production. We know that chromium drives sugar into a muscle, increased exercise performance. Okay? Growing tissue, if we fuel it, if we drive glucose into it, it will grow. Okay? So we wanted to do that to get bigger deer, to get healthier deer. So two big advantages that we put in there. Again, the chromium as well as the marine-derived calcium. Do other salt blocks have that? Absolutely not. Okay, this was way outside the window of what most people were thinking, but I didn't want to have just a salt block or a mineral block for deer. It had to be different, and it had to have something that I thought was important. Okay, marine-derived calcium, okay, for bone density and growing antler, as well as chromium for driving nutrient in to fuel that. So that is standard equipment in that particular product. Now, the other one that I put together was a product called Buck Magnet, which is an attractant, okay? And this one, okay, this one is very, very different in its look, because if you actually look at that, you can see that there's protein products, there's grain products in there, and so it's designed as an attractant to hold deer, to provide deer with energy, to provide deer with other nutrients besides trace minerals and vitamins. So this is fueling more of the energy requirements of the deer. It's actually attracting deer. There's feed value to it. I put the same two things in it. I put the marine-derived calcium and the organic chromium. I believe strongly in those two things, so I went ahead and added those to those particular products. So the trace mineral vitamin is something that can be out all the time. The attractant can be out in the spring to help those does with new fawns, fuel some of that energy requirement, can be put out in the spring for those animals to help fuel energy so that they can grow an antler. And then in the fall, when feed is starting to run short, it can be used. Now, with these attractants, this is a policy that I've stuck with, that baiting deer in certain states is illegal and you don't want to do that. We're only putting these out for squirrels. Any deer that takes a bite of that, they'll be killed on site, okay, just for safety. So what I'm trying to tell you with this is before you offer these to your clients, you need to check with what the local Fish and Game says. Can we use such a block? That's right on the feeding directions of the product, so that your customers know and you know from the standpoint of, okay, am I going to put these out? Is this an acceptable product to utilize in my particular area? So two new products that I'm really happy about. These are a free choice trace mineral salt mineral product for deer, and then an attractant product for deer. And again, in both products, the two major things that I put in it are the marine-derived calcium for the bone density and the chromium to drive nutrient into that growing tissue. So any questions on these particular products? Somehow I knew you would have a question. Okay, how are they going to hold up in the weather? Extremely good. They will not melt. Okay, they're hard enough that you won't get rain damage and melt to them. So the question was, how will they hold up in weather? Very well. So you're not going to get them But if they do melt away, we'll make more. So. What's that? Okay, so the question was how much difference can you see basically in antler growth? So a lot of these were tested, not these two particular products, but the general concept of the vitamin mineral were tested in a lot of those pen-raised deer and farm-raised deer here and in Texas and places where they feed. So they absolutely know that nutrition, the selenium, the vitamin E, those sorts of things fuel that growth, and they will work. So, but as far as saying, you know, will it turn a 140 into a 160 buck? I couldn't tell you that exactly. Yes, sir. The fly repellent product is not in these particular substances. I don't know if we would get a big enough intake to have that be effective. Let me do some research and find out if anybody's tried that as far as a ingredient or a substance to add in that, but I don't know that the intake could be high enough to get the effect we wanted. Yes? The question is, are the blocks available now?
The blocks should be available. We just cleared labels yesterday. They were transferred today. I will have the blocks in 2 weeks, we hope. When that happens, I will let the reps know. We will have letters sent out to you guys. Everybody that has attended DAC days today, the discount that you got on your orders, we will transfer that discount on for when you guys want to place orders on the blocks. I will be more than happy to give you that same discount. I was hoping we have them today. Just by the time we got the labels done and made sure everything was correct on our end, we just couldn't get them done quick enough. But in 2 weeks, so in 3 weeks, you guys will be able to put orders in on them.
Yes. Cost, RJ?
Retail, we're right around the $27 mark.
On
and
with
the
attractant?
attractant, and I believe we're right around the $28 mark on the mineral.
So they should be competitive.
We are very competitive across the board.
Okay. Yes. Oh, look, they're bypassing the question. All right. Okay, very good question. If the animals around me are so dangerous, why would I feed them to potentially make them even more dangerous? I'm all about health. You know, I want these animals healthy, that they can potentially walk away or run away, and apparently this may help in that. So, good question. Yes? No, that's retail. Yeah.
We will sell them on pallets of 20 to start. They also, when they come to us, they will be on skids of 100. If you guys are interested in skids of 100, talk to your rep. We'll get in contact. We will obviously help you guys out on a little bit of a discount if you're willing to buy a full skid of 100. But starting out, just like the lick tubs, we do the skids of 20. I wanted to kind of keep it in that same ballpark. We'll do skids of 20 of these, and you'll be able to get, you know, a couple dollars off or $1 off, I believe, on each one.
Yes.
As a sign, is there a chance we can make salt licks for the horses that are stable at some point?
Why are all these people coming up with things that I've never even thought of? Okay, so the question was, can we make a salt block that is more stable? And there is technology out there that make minerals waterproof. So we know we can do that, but we've never tried. So
Like for the horses that are stable, they can obviously are not going to put pasture lick in there, but so we're buying somebody else's salt brick to put in our stalls.
yeah, never thought of that. Well, again, another Steve Duren project, which.
There you go. It's their time.
Yep.
You're spending too much time protecting yourself.
You know, somebody's got to do it. I mean, you all felt safe coming here today. You're welcome. There's a girl behind her. Yeah, the question is, can we add something to this that would give a health effect, basically, for a parasite, the tick that influences deer to a great extent. Dr. Cuban and I work with a feed manufacturer in South Texas that is really doing a lot of innovative things in what they're feeding some of those ranch-raised deer in being able to control parasites. So I don't know what the legalities of doing that are, but yeah, that's something certainly that could be added to this if they could take in enough volume of it. Okay. All right, so that concludes what I needed to do or what I thought were new things. Did you want to take a break before lunch? Is that what you wanted to do?
Yeah, a couple things to go over quick. If everybody would, give Dr. Duren a round of applause.
What's that? Yep.
He'll be here through lunch. He does have to leave here, I believe, just after lunch to catch a flight out. So if you guys do have any questions, obviously try to let him eat a little bit, but grab him quick so you can get your questions answered by him before he has to leave. A couple things real quick. Our partnership with Nil Odor has continued to grow. How many of you guys used the product we had called Brace? Many of you. We no longer could get the Brace. There was an ingredient in there called Naonia juice, extremely, extremely hard to get a hold of. It drove the price so high that it was just physically impossible to do. We have what we think is even better than the Brace. It is called the new Ice Liniment. Todd back there from Nil Odor, he has 2 samples of it. I drive you guys to go back there, ask him questions, smell it, feel it, see what you guys think. I think it's going to be a tremendous product. We're going to do it in 2 sizes. Obviously the 55 ounce like we had done, and then a smaller size that can be taken in and used on yourself if you'd like. Also, we have, does he have the shirts on the other side over there? Oh, right here, walking across the back, the man in the back. All you guys see are awesome catalogs that just got done. The fellow walking right back there, he is in charge of all of that with Dr. Duren, Tina. He does a phenomenal job getting those done. He has our new clothing line, some handful items back there to take a look at. There is, I believe we had some on yesterday, but the 40th logo, you can get all of our logos on there. So if you guys are interested in getting any of the new apparel or anything like that, he will be back there. I believe you have some order forms to take orders, and they are awesome quality. And so I drive you guys to go on back there as well. Last thing then is in your books and pamphlets there are questions, papers for questions in there. We will be swinging through, picking those up. And then also the questionnaire at the back, please make sure you guys fill those out so we can obviously get your feedback and hopefully keep improving this as we go. We use a lot of your guys' input on that to make this event happen and be better each year. So with that being said, we are going to take a break. And okay, yep, it's going to kick it over to Andy Ellsworth here, and he's going to do a couple giveaways, and we will go from there.
Okay, on the back of your name card when you came in, there should be a red tag in there. It's got numbers on it. If you haven't got that out or if you don't have it available, grab it real quick, and I'm going to read off some numbers. If I call your number out, you can see on the tables all these great aubrey RJ told me he made them, but I'm pretty sure Aubrey did it after seeing them, so. No, Aubrey did a great job putting together the giveaways. If I call your name out, go ahead and grab one of those that's close to you. You can take that home with you as a door prize today. So everyone got their numbers out. There might be a few I name off that aren't here because we had a couple people that couldn't make it, but we are going to start with, it looks like they're all 059, so I'm just going to call the last 3 numbers on it. 376. Got her? Okay, yep, grab a centerpiece there. You can take that with you. What about 240? 240, there we go. Grab one. 288. 288. Awesome, grab one right there. 256. 256 here. All right. What? Is it? Okay. Okay, perfect. Got that taken care of. 275. 275. There we go. Grab one of those. We'll do a few more here. 352. Awesome. What about 396? There we go. Do two more. 293. 293. There we go. Grab. If they're taken in front of you, just go down the table, grab another one. And last one, we've got plenty more of these we'll do throughout the day. 252. 252. Got it? All righty. Here you go, RJ.
All right, we're going to go to a break now, and then I believe we will go from there into our amazing lunch that is planned out for us. So thank you guys again for listening in. And like I said, if you guys do have questions for Dr. Duren, feel free to snag him. He has to leave here at 1 o'clock.